War of the Worlds is about aliens attacking humanity, but the fear the movie uses to scare the audience is not aliens. It's people, and what they'll do in the fallout of a disaster. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it.
Beat it.
When H.G. Wells wrote a story in the 1890s about alien invaders taking over humanity, he was drawing a parallel to British imperialism. He created a story in which his audience would be able to understand that societal fear, the idea of facing an invasion from a civilization much more powerful than your own. When Orson Welles adapted The War of the Worlds for a radio show in 1938, some people were tricked into thinking a genuine emergency was happening because Welles structured the program to sound like radio announcers were conveying a real disaster. Welles may have presented the story that way to address the fear of the rising power in Germany. He created a fictional scenario in which the audience could understand what it might feel like to be invaded. If Steven Spielberg followed the same pattern for his adaptation of War of the Worlds, then he would also use the premise of an alien invasion to deal with the fears of his time and place. So what would those fears be? This movie came out just 4 years after 9/11. In Spielberg's own words,
I wouldn't have done War of the Worlds had it not been for 9/11. Because War of the Worlds is analogous to 9/11.
The movie has many moments that are clearly inspired by the events of 9/11 and the fears associated with it. Just take a look at the scene where we first see the aliens attack. Our main character, Ray, is forced to run for his life with all this death and destruction around him, and when he returns home, he's covered in ash. We even have a moment where Ray's daughter, Rachel, directly refers to the biggest post-9/11 fear.
Get out! Get out! Get down!
These scenes occur pretty early in the movie. They're presenting the fear of the disaster itself, but it's from here on that the movie truly becomes terrifying, because the rest of the story deals not with the catastrophe itself, but the impact a catastrophic event has, and specifically how it affects people. Like the scene where Ray and his kids find themselves in a large mob with the only working vehicle. It's all really terrifying, but notice there's not a single alien in the entire scene. Compare this scene to the one just before the aliens' first attack.
Solar flare, that's what this guy told me he heard. What is it, the subway? There's no subway here. That train?
Ray is chatting with multiple different people, discussing the weird stuff they're seeing, trying to work it out. There's this sense of community that they're all in this together. We even have this not so subtle shot of the flags in front of every house. But as soon as the aliens attack, it's pretty much everyone for themselves. And that carries over to this scene. In this new reality created by the disaster, ordinary people are just as scary as any enemy might be. People now have to face the reality that something truly horrific can happen to them at any time. So their world is now defined by that fear. This is the situation Ray finds himself in. He's generally an absent father, but in a cruel twist of fate, this is the weekend with the kids while his ex-wife and her new husband are away. One of the hallmarks of a Spielberg film is broken family dynamics. He uses these relationships to ground us in larger-than-life events, and War of the Worlds is no different. The stakes are really big, but we're witnessing it all through the effect it has on one imperfect little family. In the scene where a plane has crashed right into a residential neighborhood, Ray tries to make sure his daughter is protected from seeing all the devastation.
Now listen, I want you to close your eyes, okay? Okay. Okay, I'm closed? There you go. Close for me.
We're basically seeing Ray's role as a parent shift in the story, where not only is he trying to protect them from the threat of the world, but he's also trying to shield them from having to process it. But in the very next scene, we see that there is no escaping it. Despite Ray's best efforts, he won't be able to shield Rachel from the terrifying new reality.
I told you to stay where we could see you.
And I know that was really dark, so it's time for a fun fact. They brought in a real decommissioned plane to the set and then built the houses around it. And you can now see that plane as part of the Universal Studios tour in LA. So there you go. But back to the scary things, we come to the scene where people are evacuating onto the ferries. Now the aliens do show up in this scene, and they are scary thanks to some great sound effects. But what are we really afraid of in this scene? What gets under our skin? The alien showing up is the catalyst, but the fear is how this mob starts to move. It's all really horrific, and the aliens are almost just a background element. The fear is all centering around this idea of a catastrophic event and how people respond to it. One of the most intense sequences in the movie is when Ray and Rachel are trapped in the basement while the aliens try to find them. But even here, the underlying fear still isn't the aliens. It's the fear of the stranger that they're stuck in the basement with, that his panic, his desperation will cause the aliens to find them. In what might be the movie's darkest moment, Ray decides to take matters into his own hands to protect Rachel.
Waiting to sail your worries away.
Living in this reality of fear causes people to become worse. For better or worse, up until 9/11, catastrophes like this may have felt like a foreign concept to most Americans. Post 9/11 US culture was truly grappling with a new reality, that everything they knew could be destroyed in an instant. These are the types of fears War of the Worlds is presenting. It deals with how that fear affects the people living through the tragedy, but suggests that the real concern is how it will affect future generations. Keeping all of this in mind might also explain why the movie's ending feels so abrupt. The aliens are wiped out, but not by anything humanity does.
You guys take it down?
No, sir. It was behaving erratically, walking in circles, and it went down on its own about an hour ago.
Even though the aliens are technologically superior, they weren't biologically prepared for the microorganisms on Earth. They essentially die of exposure to Earth's natural environment. This ending is keeping in spirit with the ending from the book, but even Spielberg knows it may not have been satisfying. In an interview, he stated, "I never could figure out how to end the darn thing." I actually think when looking at H.G. Wells' story, the idea that the big powerful enemy force is destroyed by something small and simple is pretty poetic. It's this idea that empires will always fall due to their own arrogance. But that ends up not being as relevant in Spielberg's version of the story because it's entirely focused on different fears. The idea of an alien encounter can be scary, but probably not one that people would list at the top of their scary list. It's not a collective cultural fear the way it might have been back when the space race was going on or things like the Roswell UFO incident happened. So if you look at most modern movies featuring aliens as a threat, there will probably be a more culturally relevant underlying fear. And really, that applies to horror movies in general. There will usually be the presented fear and the underlying fear. And next week, we'll be looking at a movie where the presented fear is ghosts. The question is, what's the underlying fear? The Others tells the story of Grace, a mother living in a large, remote country house with her 2 children. The story takes place in 1945 at the tail end of World War II, so Grace's husband is away. But the worst part is, Grace's children have a unique condition. They're deathly allergic to sunlight. This means that the big spooky house is almost always dark. And it's in those dark rooms that Grace starts to suspect they may not be alone in the house. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. What do you think is the underlying fear in the story? What do you think is the purpose of setting the movie in 1945? What historical context is used to add to the story? Do you think the ending recontextualizes the story? What moments stand out to you? I have to give a quick shout out because somebody on my October lineup video mentioned how War of the Worlds was a post 9/11 movie, and that obviously inspired my whole take here. I couldn't find the comment, so I can't give them the best credit, but if it was you, you know who you are, and thank you. So let me know what thoughts and observations you had about War of the Worlds. And I'll see you back here next week to discuss The Others. If you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.